The sky was dark, with only the faint glow of distant stars piercing through the thick rolling clouds. On the harsh, rocky planet where the nomads wandered, the air was heavy with tension. Everything was quiet, far too quiet for the way things had been just days before. The nomadic tribes of this world lived by one rule: survive. They had always fought against the brutal environment and each other, but recently something new had come. Something that neither the tribes nor their enemies had been ready for: the warships. Huge and menacing, they appeared in the sky without warning, like shadows out of nowhere, bringing with them the kind of destruction that made the ground tremble and the air crackle with fear. At the center of all of it was a woman, her hair matted with sweat and dirt, her eyes blazing with a fierce fire. She was not like the others in her tribe. She had strength and intelligence that set her apart. Known across the desert lands as the fierce leader of her people, her name was Xarrah. Her tribe had always been nomads, always on the move, never staying in one place long enough for their enemies to catch them. But now, they had been cornered. The ships that hovered above them had already destroyed their last safe haven, and Xarrah knew their time was running out. Xarrah had seen many battles in her life, but this was unlike anything she'd ever faced. Her people were strong, but even they couldn't fight an entire fleet of warships. She had led them in the past, but now, standing in the smoke-filled shadows of the ruins, she was unsure of what to do next. The sound of explosions echoed in the distance, sending tremors through the ground beneath her feet. The enemy soldiers, humans, were advancing fast. Their armor glinted in the dim light, and their weapons were powerful enough to wipe out anything in their path. Xarrah knew their only hope now was to escape, to disappear into the wilderness and find refuge in the unknown. But with every passing minute, the chances of survival grew slimmer. As Xarrah looked over her shoulder, her heart sank. One of the enemy soldiers, larger and more intimidating than the others, stepped forward from the shadows. His armor was different, more advanced, and his eyes were hidden behind a dark helmet. He moved with the precision of a predator, his every step calculated. She could feel his presence even before he spoke. "You have two choices," his deep voice rumbled. "Submit or perish." Xarrah narrowed her eyes. She had heard rumors of this human soldiers who believed in total dominance, who saw no worth in other life forms. But she wasn't one to submit. "Not now, not ever. I will not bow to you," Xarrah said, her voice strong, unwavering. The soldier's lips curled into something between a smirk and a sneer. "Then you'll be banished. Your people will be wiped out, and you will be left to rot." Xarrah felt a cold fury run through her veins, but as she stood there, she knew she had to think. She needed a plan. She couldn't fight the entire army alone, and even if she tried, the outcome was obvious. There was no way out. She felt her heart beat faster as the realization settled in. She was running out of time. But then, something strange happened. The man in the advanced armor tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing in thought. For a moment, Xarrah thought she saw something else in him. Something different. Without warning, he moved toward her, his hand outstretched. It was a gesture Xarrah had not expected. Was he offering to help, or was this a trick? She hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to keep her distance. "You have a choice," the soldier said again. "Breed or be banished. Your tribe will survive if you accept." Xarrah's breath caught in her throat. She had heard rumors of this before, but never truly believed it. The humans, desperate for survival, would resort to anything, even enslaving or breeding with the nomadic women to create something stronger. But she was not some object to be used. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, her voice colder than ever. The soldier did not answer. Instead, he simply extended his hand once more. For a long moment, Xarrah stared at his hand, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Could she risk everything? Could she trust this human to keep his word? Or was this just another trap? She stepped back, her mind racing. her heart heavy with the burden of what came next. The war was only just beginning, and the hardest part was yet to come. Xarrah stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. The soldier's hand hung in the air between them, an invitation, an ultimatum. His dark figure loomed over her, the weight of his presence overwhelming. She could feel the moisture in the air, the cold wind pushing against her skin, and yet, in that moment, all of it faded into the background. All that mattered was the choice before her. Breed or banish. The words repeated in her mind, echoing like the crashing of waves against the jagged cliffs of her thoughts. How could it be? How could this human demand such a thing? And why was he offering her a choice at all? Xarrah's mind raced. She was no stranger to war, to violence. She had seen her people suffer, watched as they were pushed to the brink of extinction. But this was different. Her entire existence, her tribe's future, was now wrapped up in a single moment. A decision. A sacrifice. The thought of submitting to this human soldier, of becoming what they wanted her to be, made her skin crawl. She was no one's possession. She had lived a life of freedom, one of survival, of respect. She had earned every inch of her place in the world. To surrender that, to bow to this strange, cold creature before her, felt like a betrayal. Yet, the alternative was unthinkable. The soldiers had already decimated her tribe's homes. They had slaughtered those who had stood in their way. If Xarrah refused, if she fought back in her usual way, her people would be wiped out. She had seen it before. The brutal efficiency of the human army, the coldness of their actions. There would be no mercy. Her fingers tightened around the hilt of the small knife at her side, but she didn't draw it. It wasn't a weapon she could use against him, she knew that. He had strength power, more than her tribe had ever known. She looked at his hand again, the black armor glinting in the dim light. His expression was unreadable beneath the faceplate, but there was something in his stance that made her pause. He was waiting for her answer. "Why me?" Xarrah asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. The question had been burning inside her since the soldier first approached. Why had he chosen her? Why had he offered a choice, instead of simply taking what he wanted? What made her different from the others? The soldier's response was not immediate. He took a step back, lowering his hand, and for a moment, Xarrah thought he might turn away and leave her to her fate. But then, he spoke, "Because you're strong, and because your people deserve better than extinction." Xarrah blinked, trying to understand his words. Strong? Her? She was not sure she understood the meaning behind his statement. She had seen many strong warriors in her life, but she had never considered herself above the others. She was the leader of her tribe, yes, but that did not make her special, did it? She looked him over once more. This soldier, this strange human, wasn't like the others. He seemed different. Not just in his strength or his armor, but in his eyes. There was something behind those cold, dark lenses, a flicker of something. Empathy? Was that possible? She shook her head. No, she couldn't afford to be fooled by this man. The humans were all the same, weren't they? Ruthless, calculating. They had come to her world to conquer, to take, to destroy. But there was a strange feeling stirring inside her. Was it hope? No, it couldn't be. Hope was a dangerous thing. For a long moment, Xarrah did nothing. She simply stood there, trying to reconcile the impossible choice in front of her. And then, in a voice filled with resolve, she spoke. "I will not be your slave," she said firmly. "But I will not let my people die." The soldier regarded her in silence for a moment before he nodded. "Then you have made your choice." He stepped back, allowing her space. Xarrah could not help but feel a strange sense of relief wash over her. At least for now, she had not surrendered completely. She had not given in to the demands of the enemy, but she had no illusions. This was only the beginning. Whatever came next, whatever the soldier had planned, She knew that her world was about to change forever, and as she glanced back at the remains of her tribe's camp, the smoke rising in the distance, she realized one thing. The war had not yet been won, and she was far from finished. Xarrah's footsteps were heavy as she walked away from the wreckage of her camp, the soldier's words still ringing in her ears. She had made a choice, but the weight of it pressed down on her shoulders like an unseen burden. Her tribe had always been her priority, and now she was taking an uncertain path. Was it the right one? She could only hope. The soldier, who had not yet introduced himself, walked beside her, his presence silent but commanding. His armor glinted in the fading light, and despite the stark contrast between them, one a fierce nomadic leader, the other a cold, calculating soldier, there was an eerie quiet between them. She could sense his vigilance, his watchful eyes, scanning the surroundings, as though expecting something to happen at any moment. They moved through the rocky terrain, the path leading them deeper into the wilderness. Xarrah knew this land well. She had traveled it for years, guided by the stars and the rhythms of the earth. But now, the world felt different. It wasn't just the enemy soldiers who threatened her people. It was the unknown that stretched ahead. She had agreed to follow this soldier, but she didn't know what awaited her. Or them. She couldn't stop thinking about his offer. Breed or banish. The very thought repulsed her, yet she understood that it wasn't just about her. It was about her people, the ones who had no choice but to fight or perish. In that moment, she had chosen to live, to preserve what was left of her tribe, but her mind was not at peace. How could it be? A part of her questioned if this soldier's intentions were truly as noble as he claimed. He had offered her a choice, but at what cost? She had seen the ruthless ways of the humans. Would he use her? Would her people be spared, only to become tools in a larger game? She could not afford to be naive. As they walked, the sound of distant engines broke through the silence. Xarrah's heart skipped a beat. She knew that sound all too well, the hum of enemy ships, their engines a constant reminder that their war was far from over. She turned to the soldier, her eyes narrowing. "Are we being followed?" she asked, her voice sharp. The soldier stopped and glanced back, his hand instinctively going to the weapon at his side. He nodded once, his expression unreadable. "They'll be close. They always are." Xarrah's pulse quickened. She could feel the presence of danger, the sense that they were not alone in the wilderness. Her instinct screamed at her to move faster to find shelter. But the soldier remained calm, his movements slow and deliberate. "They are not here to catch us, not yet," he said, his voice quiet, almost as if speaking to himself. "They are looking for you, the leader, and they know you will not go down without a fight." Xarrah clenched her fists, a surge of defiance coursing through her. "I will not run. I have never run from a fight." The soldier turned to face her then, his helmet tilting slightly as if assessing her. "Running is not what I suggest. There are other ways to win." "Other ways?" Xarrah repeated, her brow furrowing. "What are you talking about?" The soldier did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked a few paces ahead, his back straight as he surveyed their surroundings. The air was thick with tension, the landscape vast and unforgiving. But in that moment, Xarrah saw something in him, a flicker of something beyond his stoic exterior. There was a strategy in his silence, a plan she hadn't yet begun to understand. He spoke again, his voice low but firm. "You think I am here to control you, to use you, but I am not. I am here to help you, to help your people survive. There is more at stake than you realize, Xarrah. More than just this planet." Xarrah's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "The war is not just about your people or mine," the soldier replied. "It is about the survival of many, and I have a part to play in that survival." Xarrah could feel the weight of his words settle into her chest. The uncertainty that had been swirling in her mind for days now grew heavier. What was this soldier's true purpose? Was he really offering a chance for her people to survive, or was this just another manipulation? Before she could ask more, the distant hum of the ships grew louder. Her heart skipped a beat. There was no time for more questions. The soldier's stance hardened, and for the first time, Xarrah saw a glimpse of the warrior beneath the cold exterior. He was not just a soldier. He was a strategist. A leader. "We move now," he ordered, his voice leaving no room for hesitation. "We need to find shelter before they get any closer." Xarrah's mind raced, but she did not argue. She had made her choice. She would follow him for now. Whether or not she trusted him, she had no choice but to stay alive. Together, they began to move, navigating the harsh terrain with skill and speed. The planet's rocky landscape seemed endless, and as they moved further from the wreckage of the nomadic camp, Xarrah could feel the weight of her decision pressing in on her. She had made a deal with the devil, but would it be enough to save her people? The soldiers weren't far behind, and Xarrah knew the chase had only just begun. The sun was beginning to set as Xarrah and the soldier pushed forward, the rocky path beneath their feet growing steeper and more treacherous. The air was thick with the scent of dust and metal, and the distant hum of the enemy ships never fully faded. Each step they took seemed to bring them closer to something, but Xarrah couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't safety they were heading toward. It was something else entirely. She had never trusted humans. They came, they conquered, and they left nothing behind but destruction. Yet this soldier, there was something different about him, something she couldn't quite place. He was no simple invader. He was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Soldier moved with practiced ease, his helmeted head scanning the horizon. He was always alert, always watching. Xarrah, though experienced in the art of survival, couldn't help but feel like a part of her was slipping away with each passing moment. She had been forced into this path, yes. But now the longer she walked alongside him, the more she began to question her decision. Was survival worth it if it meant losing herself? The soldier finally broke the silence. "We're heading for a safe house. My unit has a network here. They'll provide the cover we need. The ships will not be able to track us once we're inside." A safe house? Xarrah's voice betrayed a flicker of doubt. She wasn't sure whether to feel relief or caution. She knew well enough that humans were not known for their kindness. Their alliances were always temporary, always motivated by self-interest. "Yes," he replied, without slowing his pace. "You have no reason to trust me, but you will have to, for now. Your people's survival depends on it." Xarrah swallowed hard, her throat dry. She had seen many alliances in her life, none of them born from trust or goodwill. Her people had been betrayed countless times before by those who promised protection, only to later turn their backs. What made this man different? Why had he offered her this chance to survive? "What's really going on, soldier?" she asked, her voice firm. "Why are you really helping me? Helping us?" He stopped walking for a moment, as though considering the question carefully. Xarrah felt a slight unease stir within her as he finally spoke. "I told you before, this is bigger than just us," he said, his voice colder now. "You and your people are not the only ones suffering. The war you see is part of a larger conflict, a war that threatens not just your world, but many others. My people... We didn't want this war, but we were forced into it." Xarrah's curiosity piqued, but she didn't let her guard down. "And what does that have to do with me? With my people?" The soldier's hand moved to his chest plate as he exhaled slowly. "My people were the aggressors, yes. But not for the reasons you think. They are being controlled. And now they are too far gone to stop themselves. If I don't stop this war, it will spread across the stars. Your world is just one of many they will take, and it will all burn." Xarrah took in his words with disbelief. Controlled? By who? By a force far more powerful than any of us. He turned his head, his gaze distant, as though the very thought of it made him sick. They are manipulating us. Using us as pawns in a game we don't even understand. This isn't about resources or dominance. It's about something something that will consume everything if we don't act. Xarrah stood still for a moment, processing his words. She had heard whispers of such things, rumors that spoke of forces beyond comprehension. But hearing it from the mouth of the soldier, someone who was actively participating in the destruction, made it feel more real, more urgent. So why not let us fight? Let us join you, she said, her voice gaining strength. We have nothing to lose. We will fight back. The soldier's eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time, she saw something vulnerability perhaps. I wish it were that simple. You're right, you have nothing to lose. But your people are not soldiers. They are survivors. The war I speak of will not be won by brute force. We need strategy, not violence. Xarrah felt a bitter laugh rise in her throat. Strategy? She was a leader, a warrior. Strategy was the very thing she'd always relied on. What did he mean they weren't soldiers? You're wrong, she said, her voice low but firm. We are survivors because we fought for everything. We know strategy better than any of you. You may think your people are powerful, but we've fought through the harshest conditions and come out alive. So don't tell me we're not soldiers. The soldier met her gaze, his eyes hardening once again. I didn't say you weren't soldiers. I said you don't have the strength to fight the true enemy, the one behind this war. Xarrah's heart pounded as he spoke. Who was this enemy? And why did she feel like they were standing on the edge of something much greater than just a planetary war? Then teach us, she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Teach me. Show me how to fight the real enemy. For a long time, the soldier didn't say anything. Then, finally he nodded slowly. I can teach you. But it will require more than just physical strength. It will require trust. Xarrah didn't reply immediately. Trust was a word she had almost forgotten the meaning of. But this was different. The stakes were higher now. If what he said was true, if there was a larger enemy pulling the strings, then perhaps they needed more than just survival. They needed to learn how to fight the real battle. The soldier turned and began walking again, his footsteps sure. We are almost there. You will need to decide soon if you're willing to put aside your distrust. There's no time for hesitation. Xarrah took one last look at the desolate landscape around her. She had made her choice. Now she had to see it through. Xarrah's mind raced with the information the soldier had shared, but it didn't feel real. The words echoed in her mind. There was a force behind the war, something far darker than what she had imagined. She had known that her people's survival was always in jeopardy, but this was different. This wasn't just about conquering a planet. This was about an enemy so vast, so powerful, it threatened every living being across the stars. As they walked deeper into the wilderness, the soldier's pace remained steady, his helmet scanning the terrain as though he were on alert for any danger. Xarrah could feel the unease building in her chest, but she pushed it aside. There was no time for doubt. She had made her decision. She had to see it through, even if it meant trusting this man who had offered so little explanation. Safe house they were heading toward, the place the soldier spoke of, was still miles away. The air was growing colder, the harsh winds whipping through the rocky cliffs. The planet's unforgiving nature was a constant reminder of how fragile their survival was. Even if they reached the safe house, Xarrah knew it wouldn't be the end of their struggle. It was only the beginning. Finally, the soldier broke the silence. We need to stop for a moment. Xarrah glanced at him, surprised. He had been leading them without pause, his focus sharp, and yet now he was suggesting they rest. Something in his tone made her wary, but she nodded. The tension between them had been building for days, and she was beginning to realize that she needed to know more about what was really going on. She had trusted him enough to follow him this far now. It was time to hear the truth. They stopped near the edge of a rocky outcrop, where the landscape stretched out below them like an endless sea of jagged peaks. The cold wind cut through the air, and Xarrah pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders. The soldier stood a few paces away, his back to her as he looked out over the barren landscape. "Do you believe me?" the soldier asked, his voice quiet, but the question held weight. Xarrah took a deep breath. "I don't know. But you've shown me enough to know that something bigger is at play. I'm not here to waste time questioning you. I need to know what you're asking of me. What's the next step?" The soldier turned to face her, his posture relaxed, but his eyes were intense. "I'm asking you to learn how to fight, Xarrah. Not just as a warrior, but as a tactician. I'm offering you knowledge that will change the way you see everything." Xarrah narrowed her eyes, not entirely trusting his words. "You want me to fight with your methods? The human way?" "No," he said, his voice firm. "I want you to fight with your own strength, but I want you to understand that the enemy we face is not one that can be defeated with brute force alone. The war has shifted. It's not just about ground battles. The true war is fought with knowledge, with influence, with strategy." He stepped closer to her, his gaze unwavering. "Your people are survivors, but they don't have the knowledge needed to face what's coming. I want to teach you to lead them, not just with weapons, but with intelligence. To outthink the enemy." Xarrah's mind churned. She had led her people for years, but had she truly understood the nature of the war? Had she truly considered the full scale of the threat? The soldier was right about one thing: her people had always fought, but they hadn't won the war. "Not yet. I'm listening," she said, her voice hard, but beneath it, there was curiosity. The question now was how much of this she was willing to accept. How far could she trust this man and his plan? The soldier nodded, as though he had expected her response. "There are key pieces of information the humans have kept hidden. You need to know what they've been doing behind the scenes. The war isn't just about planets or resources. It's about control. And the enemy we face has been manipulating everything for decades." Xarrah's stomach twisted. "What do you mean? Who is this enemy? And why should I believe that you, of all people, are the one to help us?" The soldier's eyes softened for a brief moment, before he spoke again. "The enemy is not a who, but a what. It's a force, an entity that controls the minds of those who lead. Your people, my people, all of us, our fates are being decided by this force." Xarrah felt a chill spread through her veins. She had heard rumors of such things, but she had never imagined they could be real. The concept of a force, a power, so vast, controlling minds and shaping destinies, it was beyond comprehension. Yet, in this moment, it felt real. The pieces were falling into place. "If we don't stop it," the soldier continued, his voice low, "we will all be slaves to it. We are at the mercy of something that is beyond our control, something that has been shaping this war from the shadows. I can help you stop it, but only if you understand the true nature of what we're up against." Xarrah's head swam with the implications of what he was saying. She had always believed in the strength of her people, in the power of the nomads to overcome any obstacle, but this was something different. She had never faced a war like this, and she didn't know if she was ready to confront such an enemy, but the truth was undeniable. If what the soldier said was true, they were all on the brink of something far worse than any battle they had fought before. Xarrah had no choice but to move forward, to learn, to understand. If she didn't, everything her people had fought for would be lost. "So what do we do now?" she asked, her voice steady, her resolve hardening. "How do we stop this force?" The soldier nodded, his gaze unflinching. We fight the way it fights. We find the source of this influence, and we destroy it. But it won't be easy. There will be sacrifices. There will be losses. But if we don't stop this now, we will all be doomed. Xarrah's mind was no longer clouded by doubt. She knew that this was the path she had to take. The battle ahead was not one of strength or fury. It was one of knowledge, of strategy. And if there was any chance to save her people, she would walk this path, no matter where it led. Xarrah stood at the edge of the cliff, the wind tugging at her cloak, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. The safe house had offered temporary refuge, but she knew their time there was limited. The enemy ships were closing in, and the soldiers' plan, as grand as it seemed, was rapidly becoming a race against time. She had come a long way from the confident, independent leader she once was. But now, she was something more, something different. She had learned to fight the enemy, not just with weapons, but with knowledge, with the insight that came from understanding their tactics. The soldier had shown her the hidden forces at play, how deep the manipulation ran, and how far the shadows reached. But it wasn't enough. She wasn't ready yet. Her people were counting on her to lead them to victory, but she knew the true fight was about to begin. It wasn't a war for survival anymore. It was a war for freedom, freedom from the control that had silently governed them all. The soldier appeared beside her, his expression unreadable beneath the dark visor of his helmet. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, taking in the same view. "It's time," he said quietly, the words carrying a weight that echoed through the air. Xarrah nodded, her jaw clenched. They had been preparing for this moment for days. She had learned the enemy's patterns, their weaknesses. She had studied how to disrupt their control, how to break the hold they had over the minds of those who led. But now it was all about action. The soldier turned to her. "Are you ready for what's next?" Xarrah didn't answer immediately. She had fought battles before, but this was different. It wasn't just about strength or courage. It was about strategy, about understanding how to break the cycle of manipulation that had kept her people under control. It was about taking back their future. "We've come this far," she said finally, her voice steady. "We can't stop now. We do this together." The soldier nodded, his movements precise. "We move out in 15 minutes. We're going straight to their central command. That's where the heart of their influence lies." Xarrah's pulse quickened. This was it, the final stage of the mission. No more plans, no more training. Everything had led to this. The path to the enemy's central command was fraught with danger. The area was heavily fortified, and enemy patrols had been more active in recent days. But the soldier had a plan. They would infiltrate, disrupt, and strike before the enemy even knew what hit them. Xarrah adjusted her weapons, feeling the weight of them settle against her body. She was no longer just a leader. She was a fighter, a tactician, a survivor. She had learned to think like the enemy, to understand how they operated. And now she was ready to bring them down as they made their way toward the enemy stronghold. Xarrah could feel the tension building. The night was thick with uncertainty, and every step forward brought them closer to what could either be victory or destruction. The soldier led the way, his movements swift and silent, his presence like a shadow. They reached the outer perimeter of the enemy base by dawn. The towering structure loomed before them, its stark metal walls rising into the morning sky. Xarrah's heart pounded as they crouched in the shadows, watching the sentries patrol. The soldier's voice cut through the silence. "We move on my mark." Xarrah nodded, her breath steady, her mind clear. This was the moment. There would be no turning back. The mark came, and they surged forward, moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. The soldier led them through a series of back alleys and hidden tunnels, all while Xarrah's mind remained focused on the mission. Her heart pounded with anticipation. This was the culmination of everything they had worked for, everything they had fought for. When they finally reached the command center, Xarrah's pulse was racing, her body tense. They had avoided detection so far, but she knew that any moment, the enemy could discover their presence. She moved into position beside the soldier, her eyes scanning the area. She could hear the hum of machinery and the low murmur of voices. Inside, "This is it," the soldier whispered, his voice low. "We hit them hard and fast, disrupt their control systems. We do this right, and we'll free every person they've manipulated." Xarrah gave a small nod, her hand reaching for the device the soldier had given her. It was a disruptor, a tool designed to hack into the enemy's systems and sever their control over the people they had brainwashed. She had practiced with it, and now it was time to use it. With a final glance toward the soldier, she stepped forward, sliding through the opening he had created. The interior of the command center was sleek and cold, illuminated by harsh, artificial lights. She could feel the presence of the enemy, the sense of power and control that filled the air. But it was time to take that power away. She moved swiftly, placing the disruptor into the console, her fingers flying over the controls. The device hummed to life, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, a crackling sound filled the room, followed by a cascade of sparks as the system short-circuited. The command center shuddered, and the lights flickered. "They're losing control," the soldier murmured, his voice barely audible. Suddenly, alarms blared, and Xarrah's heart leapt into her throat. It was happening faster than she had expected. The enemy was aware of their presence now. The final battle had begun. Xarrah grabbed her weapon, the surge of adrenaline pushing her forward. The soldier's voice echoed in her ear. "We have to move, now." The air around them erupted with gunfire as enemy soldiers flooded into the room. But Xarrah was ready. She fired, her shots precise and deadly. The soldier moved beside her, his movements coordinated with hers, creating a perfect, deadly dance as they fought their way through the chaos. In the midst of the battle, Xarrah felt something shift within her. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This wasn't just about fighting for her people. This was about fighting for freedom from the manipulation, from the control that had held everyone in its grip for so long. As the enemy forces began to falter, their control systems collapsing, Xarrah knew that they were winning. They were breaking the chains that had bound them all, freeing not just her people, but every race that had been forced into submission. When the last of the enemy soldiers fell, the command center was silent, save for the steady hum of the failing machinery. Xarrah stood amidst the wreckage, her breath coming in heavy gasps. Her people had been freed, and the war was over. But the price had been high. The soldier stood beside her, his eyes unreadable behind his visor. "You did it," he said quietly. Xarrah looked at him, her expression softening. No, we did it. They had done it. They had taken back control. But as she looked around at the destruction they had caused, Xarrah knew that victory was only the beginning. The war was over, but the real challenge was what came next: rebuilding, leading, and making sure that no one would ever have to fight this kind of war again.